As the world prepares for King Charles's upcoming coronation this weekend, more Caribbean nations are saying that they want out. In 2021, Barbados became a republic, making them the first country in 3 decades to ditch the British monarchy. And since then, 6 countries, Belize, the Bahamas, Jamaica, Grenada, Antigua and Barbuda, and St. Kitts and Nevis have all announced that they have plans to do the same. Now, as King Charles III prepares for his coronation on Saturday, it raises a question as to what will happen to the Commonwealth. Joining me to unpack this is Professor of African American Studies and Anthropology at UCLA, Dr. Jemima Pierre. Professor, always good to see you. I don't know about you, but when I heard this news, I was quite happy. How does the history between the royal family and Caribbean countries factor into sort of why they want a split?
Well, first of all, how do we catalog the British monarchy's palace of atrocities? The British monarchy is a long history of enslavement and land expropriation and violence towards all its colonies. Remember, the British was the largest empire, where they used to say the sun never set on the British Empire. And it got its wealth from all these people, particularly the Caribbean, Latin America, Africa, and Asia. And so, we have to first remember that this is not some pretty coronation of, play king. This is a brutal empire that reigned for a couple hundred years and caused a lot of death and misery and became rich because of that. And so then the Commonwealth, came actually as the empire was crumbling in the 50s, in the 1940s and 50s. After, World War II in particular, where, they were trying, the Commonwealth was a way to basically save, save the empire. And with the first thing they did, the Commonwealth actually was given, was made with the former white colonies, right? South Africa, Australia, Canada. And it wasn't until later on that they opened it up for former colonies. And so it's the Commonwealth is a neo-colonial enterprise that actually needs to be abolished. And it's actually embarrassing as a younger person in the Caribbean and Africa to actually be happy about a coronation that's based on the miseries of your ancestors.
I'm so glad you said that last part, because I still see some people celebrating and excited and worshiping at the feet of the monarchy. And I'm just like, y'all understand what's at stake here. But something interesting is happening, and we're seeing more countries in the Caribbean cutting ties with the monarchy. Now, the idea has always been there, but it seems to be happening now more than ever. Is there a reason why we're seeing it now more than ever, you suspect?
Well, I think part of it is I think the younger generation is seeing that, first of all, what does membership in the Commonwealth provide? Nothing. It hasn't provided anything for the people who are members, particularly those in the Caribbean and Africa. But the other thing is, we have to remember, especially in England, the Windrush scandal. I don't know if people know this, but this is the Windrush generation was a generation of people that Britain, when it was Great Britain, brought in, went to the Caribbean and brought in about 500 people to come and help build England in 1948, and basically use them as cheap and almost free labor to build England. And then just, in 2010, it removed all their paperwork and started deporting people from that group, saying that they weren't really British citizens. And so there was still, a bad taste in the mouths of all these people who gave so much to England, and then to have them deported. And so you have that, but also you have the growing reparations movement. And I don't know if people know this, but with, the act abolishing slavery in the Caribbean in particular also included compensation for the enslavers, for the white people. And the compensation was so big, it was the equivalent of about $300 billion today. Wow. That the British government had to take a loan from the Rothschild banking cartel to pay, 47,000 white enslavers, and they did not finish paying that loan till 2015. So let's think about this, right? British taxpayer money, paying off the white enslavers for slavery, right? For giving up their Africans. And so I think people know this, And then you have this coronation costing about $125 million when the Caribbean is still asking for reparations. The reparation movement is growing in the Caribbean in particular. And so how do you justify this coronation, of a love fest for a history of atrocities, with the fact that these people who did not get compensated, the children of the enslaved Africans, with this monarchy trying to hold on to some kind of influence above on them. So I think the younger generation are finally coming to terms with the neocolonialism of their elders, and they want to push away from that.
I think you're right. I have to run in just a second, but this push for reparations, does it seem viable? Here in the United States, it's a struggle. It's an uphill battle. We're still fighting the fight. Does the forecast look any different for the Caribbean?
We'll have to wait and see. It has gotten a lot of attention. Hillary Beckles is one of the key names behind this movement, and they've been doing a lot of work. And one of the key things actually has been tracing where the money went. And so there's I can't remember the name of the program, but there's an online program, for example, in England, based out of one of the universities, where they actually can name the families that receive compensation from the British government from slavery. So we can trace those who own Africans, those who really made a lot of money from it, those who invested the money and became wealthy. So I do think there's a big push from the Caribbean, and it will work. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to keep following this, and we hope that justice is achieved. And it cannot be achieved if there is a Commonwealth that still has its claws in the Caribbean. So we're going to continue to fight and push back. Professor Pierre, we thank you so much for joining us as always.